the four-dimensional grandmother chess game of the century.
In the high-stakes game of global politics, the rules of the game are no longer written in a traditional sense. Instead, they are being redefined by two figures whose influence and ambition are reshaping the course of history: Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. These two men are grandmasters in a four-dimensional chess game, playing the same game, but shaping its boundaries and strategies in vastly different ways. Their ambition is clear: to dominate their nations on the global stage. But the paths they take to achieve this, and the consequences of their moves, are what make this geopolitical contest one of the most intriguing of the 21st century. It wasn't just about winning battles or claiming territory in this new game. It was about defining the rules of the game itself, reshaping the global order, and determining which nation would emerge as the dominant force of the century. The players were clear, but the endgame was anything but certain. And the rules? Well, they were still being written by two men whose strategies and ambitions would change the world forever. Trump, the outsider businessman turned populist disruptor, sought to reclaim America's position at the top of the global ladder, determined to assert the United States as the undisputed leader in the world's economic, military, and political spheres. Xi, the calculating and methodical leader of China, had a different vision: economic dominance and strategic autonomy for China. His goal wasn't to impose China's authoritarian system on the world, but to break free from the iron grip of the US-led financial system and shift the global economic balance in China's favor. Their approaches were strangely similar, yet radically different, shaped by the systems in which they operated. Trump, with his wild unpredictability, and Xi, with his slow-burning strategic patience, were playing the same game, just in different ways. Trump was everything the political establishment wasn't. Brash, unpredictable, and unafraid to challenge every norm, he entered the political arena as a wild card. His rise to power had been anything but conventional. He leveraged his status as a billionaire businessman and outsider persona to tap into a deep well of dissatisfaction among the American electorate. His message was clear: America first. Trump's style was bold, often to the point of brashness. He embraced the role of disruptor, refusing to play by the established rules. To him, global trade was a zero-sum game, where the United States had been cheated and now needed to regain its dominance. His administration's economic strategy was driven by nationalism, protectionism, and a relentless desire to reshape global trade relationships to favor American interests. But Trump's greatest strength, his ability to act without hesitation and shake up the system, was also his greatest vulnerability. His power was tied to the political system he led, and every move he made had to navigate the turbulent currents of American democracy, where institutions, public opinion, and political checks often limited his scope for action. In contrast, Xi Jinping was a master of long-term strategy. His rise to power was marked by a deliberate consolidation of authority, ensuring that no one could challenge his vision for China's future. In a system where one-party rule was the norm, Xi had fewer constraints, giving him the freedom to pursue bold moves with long-term consequences. Xi's vision for China was rooted in economic supremacy, but his strategy was built on patience and gradual dominance. He knew that China's future lay in economic growth, not military conquest. His focus was on breaking free from US dominance in global financial markets and building new economic alliances and institutions. Through initiatives like BRICS, Belt and Road, and financial reforms, Xi sought to reshape the global economy by creating alternatives to the US-led financial system. Where Trump acted on impulse, Xi calculated every step with precision. His focus wasn't just on immediate gains, but on long-term resilience and self-sufficiency. For Xi, global influence was gained through economic dependencies, infrastructure investments, and trade networks, not through military intervention. Both Xi and Trump aimed to secure uncontested dominance over their respective nations. Xi's grip on power has been strengthened through purges, term limit abolishment, and direct control over state organs. His leadership is unquestioned, with the CCP as the backbone of his rule. Xi's methodical consolidation of authority reflects a disciplined, long-term approach, where every move is strategically calculated for stability. He has positioned himself as the champion of Chinese sovereignty against foreign influences, particularly Western elites, promoting a form of Chinese exceptionalism that seeks to restore China to its historical status. Trump, though similarly obsessed with consolidation, has taken a more disruptive approach. He embraced tactics such as executive orders to bypass bureaucratic hurdles, taking cues from China's authoritarian model. His political strategy has been rooted in disruption, not just against opponents, but against the very system itself. He succeeded in reshaping the Republican Party into his personal political tool. His attacks on the deep state reflect his desire to control not just policy, but institutions that have historically defined U.S. democracy. His challenge lies in navigating a system that resists his authoritarian impulses. Yet his populist strategies tapping into anti-establishment sentiment continue to resonate with large portions of the electorate, allowing him to remain influential in an ever-shifting political landscape. In the realm of economic strategy, both leaders place significant emphasis on economic nationalism to assert dominance. Xi's approach focuses on economic self-sufficiency through policies like dual circulation and the promotion of state-backed industries. His goal is to build a China that is less reliant on Western markets and technologies, while expanding its economic influence globally, particularly through partnerships like BRICS and Belt and Road. Taking cues from Trump's team of oligarchs, Xi sees the need to gather its own team of oligarchs to strengthen collaborations with key private enterprises to align national goals and remain competitive against U.S. economic moves. Trump's America First policies, while also nationalistic, are more disruptive in nature. His use of tariffs and trade wars aims to dismantle the established international trade order, forcing nations to react to U.S. demands. While his actions are chaotic and often short-term, they push the U.S. towards a more isolationist and protectionist stance. The challenge for Trump lies in executing long-term economic shifts within a system that demands quick results and where his policies disrupt traditional alliances. In the battle for technological supremacy, both leaders recognize the power of the billionaire class. Xi has taken a centralized approach by aligning China's tech giants like Alibaba, Huawei, and Tencent with national goals, ensuring that their innovations directly benefit China's long-term strategic interests. His strategy involves state-guided technological development, focusing on industries like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and 8G. Trump, on the other hand, has built private-public partnerships with U.S. tech giants like Tesla and Palantir, calling for strategic alliances to achieve objectives in space, defense, and artificial intelligence. While Trump has leveraged the power of American tech billionaires, his approach is less centralized than Xi's, relying more on market forces and entrepreneurial innovation. Both leaders view technology as a battleground for economic and political supremacy, but Xi's model is more top-down, while Trump's embraces a more chaotic yet entrepreneurial approach. The Shadow War, the battle for global stability. The shadow war between the U.S. and China is not merely an economic contest or a show of military might. It is a high-stakes battle for ideological supremacy and political control. In this Grandmaster Chess Game, covert operations, cyber warfare, and diplomatic influence all play pivotal roles in shaping the outcomes. Trump continues to play his strategy, deploying agencies like the National Endowment for Democracy to provoke unrest in China's most sensitive regions: Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. His tactic? To leverage pro-democracy movements and human rights organizations to fracture China's internal unity, thereby undermining Xi Jinping's grip on power. This aligns with his America First philosophy, disrupting China's dominance by exploiting its vulnerabilities. However, Trump's aggressive moves come at a cost. The TikTok ban, intended to weaken China's soft power, backfires as millions of American users flock to Xiaohongshu, an alternative Chinese platform. This shift undermines U.S. media narratives, which had painted China in a negative light, and bolsters China's influence in the West. In response, Xi counters with precision. China's growing global influence allows Xi to isolate nations that support U.S.-backed movements, creating a network of diplomatic and economic alliances that challenge American efforts. He frames the U.S. as violating international norms, asserting China's territorial sovereignty in the process. Domestically, Xi strengthens control through a mix of economic growth initiatives, enhanced living standards, and surveillance technologies. Militarily, China flexes its power in contested regions such as the South China Sea and Taiwan, ensuring that any U.S. attempt to disrupt its stability is met with a potent show of strength. In this grand game, both sides anticipate the other's moves, but the board is ever shifting. The real question remains, who will gain the upper hand in this battle for global stability, and who will ultimately dictate the future rules of the game? Geopolitically, Xi plays a patient, strategic game, akin to the ancient Chinese game of Go. His focus on extending China's influence through the Belt and Road Initiative, military investments in the South China Sea, and forming global economic alliances is part of his long-term vision for global soft power. Xi understands that control is often achieved through strategic alliances and economic dependencies, rather than overt military aggression. China's military buildup in the Indo-Pacific aims to counter U.S. military encirclement of its Pacific front. Trump's style, by contrast, is chaotic. A blitz of international relations based on American exceptionalism that aims to disrupt rather than build. His isolationist policies have led to withdrawals from global agreements, and his presidency could further isolate the U.S. from alliances like NATO. The military dimension of the game was fraught with danger. Trump had begun to pull back from the global military commitments of the past, focusing instead on consolidating power in the Western Hemisphere and its firepower on China. He perceives China as the U.S. existential threat. He had placed emphasis on controlling strategic territories in Panama, Greenland, Canada, and the Arctic, regions rich in resources, key to global shipping routes and strategic military defense, and isolating China, particularly with Russia and Latin Americas. Trump's vision was to build a new fortress where the U.S. could project power from the Americas, ensuring its strategic dominance in the face of China's rising influence globally and in the Americas in particular. Both Xi and Trump have become symbols of their nations, cultivating strong cults of personality. Xi, with his Xi Jinping thought and control over media and education, has become the ideological cornerstone of China's future. Trump, in turn, has built his own cult of personality through social media and anti-establishment rhetoric, portraying himself as the strong man who will save America from the corrupt elites. The four-dimensional Grandmaster Chess Game of the century is not just a battle for geopolitical power, it's a contest over the future of global leadership. Both Xi and Trump have made deliberate calculations, taken risks, and built strategies. Both sides anticipate the other's moves, but the board is ever shifting and the endgame remains uncertain. Will one checkmate the other, or will they both rewrite the rules of the game, crafting a new global order where the US and China mirror each other's economic nationalism, technological authoritarianism, and leader-centric governance? As the world watches, the question remains, who will emerge as the true grandmaster of the 21st century?
A Simpson X production.